Hey folks, tonight we plunge into the heart of a forgotten nightmare, one that unfolds in the vast, unforgiving expanse of the Pacific. Before we begin, if these tales of resilience and shadows resonate with you, consider liking and subscribing, and share in the comments. Where are you tuning in from? Now, dim the lights, perhaps switch on a gentle fan for that subtle ocean hum, and settle back as we drift into July 1945. You're no longer safe aboard the USS Indianapolis, that mighty cruiser fresh from a secret mission delivering the atomic bomb's core. One moment, the familiar throb of engines lulls you in your hammock. The next, torpedoes rip through the hull like vengeful ghosts. The ship, your steel sanctuary, twists and screams, buckling in mere 12 minutes as oil-slicked waves swallow it whole. Yet this is just the prelude. Your real ordeal, adrift in the tropical dark where cold bites deeper than expected, has only begun, with unseen predators circling below like patient reapers. The world shatters in a thunderclap that echoes through your bones, pulling you from the haze of sleep into a void that defies comprehension. One heartbeat ago, the USS Indianapolis cradled you in its iron womb, her engines humming a lullaby of steady progress across the Philippine Sea, fresh from that clandestine drop-off in Tinian. The uranium heart of what would become humanity's most devastating fire. Now, as you claw your way to the surface, gasping against the crush of water that floods your lungs like molten lead, the ship you called home twists in agony, her bow rearing up against the starless sky like a dying leviathan pleading for mercy. The torpedoes from the Japanese submarine I-58 have done their work with ruthless efficiency, ripping through her hull in the dead of July 30th, 1945. And in those frantic moments, you tumble into the abyss, the tropical warmth a cruel illusion as the night-chilled waves bite deep, wrapping around you like the fingers of fate itself. Disorientation reigns supreme, a fog thicker than the oil slicks blooming across the water's skin. You cough up seawater laced with the acrid tang of fuel, a bitter elixir that coats your tongue and seeps into your pores, marking you as one of the damned. Around you, the chaos unfolds in fragmented bursts. Distant explosions illuminate silhouettes of men flailing against the pull, their shouts mingling with the groan of metal surrendering to the deep. The ship, that symbol of American might, vanishes in a mere 12 minutes, a blink in the grand theater of war. Her secret cargo of atomic destiny ensuring no distress call pierced the radio silence, leaving you all adrift in a silence that screams louder than any siren. Yet amid the wreckage, debris bobs like forgotten promises, splintered wood, empty canisters, a barrel that you grasp instinctively, its curve a fleeting anchor in the liquid unknown. And in that grasp, a fleeting thought flickers through your mind, born of the absurdity that clings to survival's edge. At least she didn't drag it out, this unsinkable pride of the fleet. Considerate, in her way, to bow out swiftly and spare the prolonged farewell. As the initial shock ebbs, replaced by the relentless tug of currents that whisper of vast, indifferent depths below, you force your limbs into motion. The water, surprisingly cold for these latitudes, numbs your extremities, a subtle thief, stealing sensation, while the tropics' humid breath hangs heavy above. You paddle blindly at first, each stroke a defiance against the pull toward oblivion, your life vest, sodden and heavy, buoying you just enough to keep your head above the oily sheen that mirrors the void. Shouts pierce the night, fragmented pleas that draw you like moths to dim flames. Over here, or hold on, echoing from clusters of shadows. In this new realm, where the structured decks and bulkheads of naval life dissolve into boundless fluidity. Boundaries blur, friend from foe, hope from hallucination. Yet instinct guides you toward one such group, a huddle of perhaps a dozen men linking arms in a fragile circle, their forms barely discernible against the inky canvas, as if the ocean itself has painted them in shades of despair. Drawing nearer, the reality sharpens into focus, each face a mask of wide-eyed terror etched under fleeting bursts from dying flares. There's the burly machinist from engineering, his beard matted with oil like a drowned rat's fur. Beside him, a young ensign, muttering prayers that dissolve into sobs. You reach them, your arms burning from the effort, and they pull you in without a word, the human chain closing around you like a makeshift raft, woven from flesh and will. The contact brings a fleeting warmth, a reminder that you're not yet alone in this watery purgatory, though the chill seeps deeper, gnawing at your core as the adrenaline fades. Conversations stutter to life in hushed tones, piecing together the nightmare. 2 torpedoes amidships, fires raging unchecked, the order to abandon ship lost in the pandemonium. No one mentions the cargo outright, uranium for the bomb that would end the war. But its weight lingers unspoken, a cosmic irony that this vessel of destruction now consigns you to the sea's indifferent judgment. In these first hours, as the initial clamor subsides into an uneasy quiet, broken only by the lap of waves and occasional cries fading into the distance, a profound melancholy settles over you like a shroud. The vastness presses in, the horizon an invisible line where sea meets sky in eternal embrace, mocking the fragility of human endeavor. You think of the life left behind, the letters from home tucked in your locker, now claimed by the depths, and a quiet empathy stirs for those around you, each carrying their own unspoken burdens. Yet woven into this somber tapestry is a thread of resilience, a subtle acknowledgement that survival, in its rawest form, demands not just strength, but surrender to the moment. The group huddles tighter, sharing body heat against the encroaching cold, and in that closeness, a wry observation surfaces unbidden. How the Navy's drills prepared you for everything except this intimate dance with the abyss, where the only uniform is desperation, and the chain of command dissolves into mutual grip. As the night drags on, the surprises mount, the tropical waters, warm by day, turn traitorous under the moonless veil, sapping heat from your body in slow, insidious waves. Hypothermia whispers its threats, a silent predator far removed from the battlefields you knew, where bullets and bombs offered swift ends. Here, the enemy is time itself, stretching each minute into an eternity of waiting. You scan the dark for signs of rescue, perhaps a searchlight from another ship, or the drone of planes overhead, but the silence mocks such hopes, a reminder of the Indianapolis's classified path, veering off standard routes to evade detection, only to invite this fateful encounter. The oil slicks, vast and iridescent in fleeting glimpses, coat your skin like a second epidermis, a barrier that traps the cold within, while the sea's gentle undulations rock you like a cradle built for nightmares. Yet amid this desolation, fragments of humanity persist. A sailor shares a sodden cigarette, its glow a brief beacon. Another hums a half-remembered tune from shore leave, the melody fraying into the wind. You cling to these, weaving them into a fragile narrative of endurance, drawing quiet parallels to the world beyond. How in the safety of modern harbors, such tales become footnotes, yet here they forge the essence of being alive. The abyss stares back, its depths concealing secrets older than war, and in that gaze, a melancholy empathy blooms. For the men lost already, for the resilience demanded by circumstance, and for the historical ledger that will one day recount this as a chapter in humanity's unyielding saga. As exhaustion tugs at your edges, blending fear with a strange fatalistic calm, you realize this awakening is not merely to survival, but to the profound solitude of the soul adrift, where every breath defies the inevitable pull downward. The hours blur, marked by the rhythmic slap of water against your vest, each wave a metronome counting down to dawn. In this liminal space, thoughts drift to the ironies of fate. The ship that carried the seeds of atomic fury now scattered to the currents, her crew reduced to specks in the Pacific's maw. A subtle chasm opens between the valor preached in training and this raw existence, where bravery means simply enduring the next swell. You paddle lightly to stay with the group, the effort a meditation on persistence, and as fatigue weaves its spell, a quiet reflection emerges. Perhaps this is the true test of mankind's spirit, not in the thunder of guns, but in the whisper of waves that erode all but the core of will. The night deepens, the chill intensifies, and yet, in the huddle's tenuous warmth, a spark of defiance flickers, unspoken, unyielding, a testament to the human thread that binds even in the face of oblivion. As the initial frenzy of your plunge fades into a throbbing ache in your limbs, the ocean's vast indifference begins to assert itself, a silent architect reshaping your world into something primal and unforgiving. You propel yourself forward with labored strokes, each one a quiet rebellion against the currents that tug at you like forgotten regrets, drawing you toward the faint chorus of voices that cut through the night like beacons in a storm of shadows. The water, thick with the residue of the Indianapolis's demise, clings to your skin in a viscous embrace, transforming your uniform into a sodden shroud that weighs heavier with every passing moment. Yet in this liquid limbo, where the boundaries of self dissolve into the collective struggle, you sense the pull of camaraderie, a fragile thread spun from shared peril, reminding you that even in the heart of isolation, humanity clings like barnacles to the hull of hope. Reaching the cluster feels like emerging from a dream into a half-formed reality, where shapes solidify into faces etched with the raw geometry of fear. There are perhaps 15 of you now, arms interlocked in a makeshift ring that bobs with the sea's gentle mockery, each swell lifting and lowering the group like a breath from some colossal, unseen lung. The chafing of life vests against raw necks creates a symphony of discomfort, a constant rasp that underscores the absurdity of your predicament. Here you are, warriors reduced to floating corks in nature's indifferent bottle. One by one, names are murmured like incantations against the dark. There's Harlan from the engine room, his voice gravelly with soot and shock. Beside him, a cook named Reyes, clutching a fragment of railing as if it were a talisman. And then, locking eyes with you in a nod that speaks volumes unspoken, is Smitty, a lanky gunner's mate barely out of his teens, his fingers white-knuckled around his vest, trembling not just from the chill, but from the weight of a youth abruptly thrust into antiquity. In this circle, forged not by command but by instinct, conversations unfurl like tendrils seeking light, weaving a tapestry of fragments to stave off the encroaching void. Whispers recount the strike, the Japanese submarine I-58 lurking in the shadows of the Philippine Sea, its torpedoes slicing through the night with predatory precision, exploiting the very secrecy that cloaked your mission. That classified detour, veering off established lanes to deliver the atomic components that would reshape the world, now seals your fate in irony. No one knows you're missing. The radios silence a double-edged sword that buys time for the enemy while dooming you to obscurity. Historians would later debate whether this veil of secrecy prolonged your agony, arguing over logs and signals that painted a picture of bureaucratic oversight. But in the moment, such reflections feel distant, like echoes from a shore you'll never see. Instead, you focus on the immediate, the shared warmth radiating faintly through the huddle, a counterpoint to the water's insidious theft of heat, where the tropics' promise of balmy nights reveals itself as a deceptive veil over hypothermia's subtle advance. As the group tightens, linking not just arms but destinies, a subtle undercurrent of resilience emerges, a quiet defiance that honors the unyielding spirit woven into the fabric of survival. You count heads repeatedly, a ritual that humanizes the abstract. 13 now. Wait, 14. As if numbers could ward off the fading cries that drift from beyond your perimeter. Each one a somber reminder of those claimed by the initial blasts or the sea's patient pull. Smitty, his breath coming in shallow puffs that miss the air, mutters through chattering teeth. Well, if we're playing sardines, at least the can opened itself. No need for a key. His words hanging like a wry spectre, born from the desperation that twists terror into fleeting levity, a spark that illuminates the absurdity without dispelling the gloom. It's in these moments that the chasm between then and now yawns wide. In today's world of instant connections and safety nets, such isolation feels archaic, a testament to the raw fortitude demanded by history's unforgiving tides, evoking a gratitude for the mundane anchors of modern life. The circle becomes a microcosm of endurance, where personal stories seep out like blood from hidden wounds, binding you closer amid the ocean's vast erasure. Harlan speaks of his wife back in Ohio, her letters a lifeline now lost to the depths, his voice cracking like the ship's hull under strain. Reyes counters with tales of pre-war feasts, the memory of spices a phantom on your tongue that sharpens the hunger already stirring. You contribute fragments of your own, perhaps a recollection of boot camp's grueling drills, now laughably inadequate for this trial. Each anecdote a brick in the wall against despair. Yet beneath the surface, fear simmers like an undercurrent, the water's opaque blackness concealing depths that pulse with unknown life, where every ripple could herald a shadow from below. The chill intensifies as the night wears on, seeping into your bones like ink into parchment, a slow inscription of vulnerability that tests the metal forged in war's furnace. In this deepening hour, as fatigue blurs the edges of awareness, a melancholic empathy envelops you, a quiet acknowledgement of the shared humanity floating precariously on the brink. The group's whispers turn introspective, pondering the mission's cosmic irony. The vessel that ferried the seeds of unparalleled destruction now scatters her crew like ashes on the wind, a fatalistic twist that underscores the fragility of grand designs. No judgment colors these reflections. Instead, they flow with the inevitability of the tides, honoring the quiet heroism in mere persistence. Compared to the insulated existence of later eras, where technology bridges oceans and averts such solitudes, this ordeal stands as a monument to unadorned resilience, stirring a profound sympathy for those ensnared by destiny's web, and a subtle reverence for the knowledge that illuminates their sacrifices. As the circle holds against the swells, each member's grip a silent vow. The night stretches into an eternal vigil, where time dissolves into the rhythm of breaths and waves. The fading cries from afar serve as somber punctuation, each one etching deeper the U-shaped curve of loss. Yet in the huddle's tenuous solidarity, a spark of defiance endures, a testament to the human capacity to forge light from darkness, even as the abyss whispers of surrender. Smitty's hand tightens on yours, a wordless pact amid the chill's encroachment, and in that contact, the weight of history presses close, a reminder that survival is not merely enduring the body, but nurturing the spirit against the inexorable pull of the deep. The water laps gently now, almost mockingly serene, as if the sea itself pauses to observe this fragile assembly, poised on the edge of tomorrow's unforgiving dawn. Yet woven through the melancholy is a thread of quiet wonder, at the improbable bonds forming in this watery cradle, where strangers become kin under duress. The oil's slick sheen catches faint glimmers from distant phosphorescence, painting your faces in ethereal glows that belie the grim tableau. A subtle irony that the very fuel of your downfall now adorns you like war paint for an unseen battle. In these reflections, born from the night's introspective hush, you glimpse the timeless value of historical insight. It bridges the gulf between eras, fostering empathy for the unyielding trials that shape the present, and instilling a gratitude that tempers today's fleeting stresses with perspective. The circle sways, a living entity adrift, and as exhaustion tugs at your eyelids, the fear lingers not as panic, but as a quiet companion, urging you to cherish the breath that defies the depths. The veil of night lifts with agonizing slowness, as if the horizon itself hesitates to reveal what the darkness has concealed, painting the sky in reluctant strokes of bruised purple that bleed into a reluctant gold. You feel it before you see it, the subtle shift in the water's hue, from inky oblivion to a shimmering azure that mocks your exhaustion with its deceptive serenity. As the sun crests, a merciless orb forging its path across the indifferent canvas, it transforms the sea into a mirror of merciless clarity, reflecting not just the scattered remnants of your world, but the stark isolation that now defines it. Oil patches sprawl like ink blots from a shattered quill, their iridescent swirls capturing the light in hypnotic patterns that belie the poison they carry, while distant figures, fellow survivors perhaps, or illusions born of fatigue, dot the expanse like forgotten punctuation in an unfinished sentence. In this emerging light, the group's fragile unity sharpens into focus, each face a map of overnight ordeals, salt-crusted brows furrowed in quiet resolve, eyes squinting against the glare that pierces like accusatory fingers. The warmth you craved through the night's insidious chill now arrives as a betrayer, the tropical sun climbing with predatory grace, its rays a hammer forging your skin into a taut drumhead that throbs with every heartbeat. Thirst awakens fully then, a serpent uncoiling in your throat, each dry swallow amplified by the sight of endless water that taunts with its undrinkable abundance. You tread rhythmically, legs scissoring in mechanical defiance, the motion a meditative mantra against the pull of surrender, while avoiding the oily veils that drift too close, their touch a greasy film that clogs pores and stings eyes like unspoken accusations. As the group adjusts, linking arms anew against the swells that rock you like indifferent cradles, a murmur arises, a faint sighting, one man claiming a shadow slicing the surface, sleek and purposeful, dismissed by others as a trick of waves or weary minds. Yet the seed takes root, burrowing into the collective psyche, the deep blue below transforming from mere medium to a living entity, its depths pulsing with unseen rhythms that evoke a quiet dread, a fatalistic acceptance that the sea harbors secrets far older than your war. You feel it in the tightening of grips, the way breaths sink in unspoken vigilance, each member a thread in this web of mutual dependence, honoring the quiet fortitude that history demands of the overlooked. Compared to the buffered existence of later times, where satellites trace every vessel and alert summon aid in instants, this isolation etches a profound respect for the unyielding will that once navigated such voids, stirring empathy for those ensnared by circumstance and a subtle gratitude for the bridges knowledge builds across eras. The sun ascends higher, its light a relentless interrogator stripping away illusions, baking your lips into cracked parchment that bleeds with every word. Thirst evolves from discomfort to obsession, a phantom itch that scratches at your thoughts, while the oily waves lap with insidious persistence, tempting a sip that reason barely restrains. In this crucible, reflections surface unbidden, the Navy's grand promises of glory now reduced to this elemental trial, where adventure sours into endurance, and you ponder inwardly how they touted the sea's romance without mentioning the complimentary saltwater cocktail service. A wry flicker amid the haze that underscores the absurdity without diminishing the ache. The group shares sparse words, encouragements laced with melancholy, tales of home that hang like mirages, each one a lifeline thrown across the growing chasm of despair, fostering a bond that transcends ranks, a silent tribute to the human spark that flickers even as shadows lengthen. Yet beneath the surface calm, fear simmers like heat haze over the water, the debated fin a harbinger that lingers in peripheral glances, transforming every ripple into a potential omen. The Philippine Sea, with its deceptively balmy embrace, reveals its dual nature, a cradle by day that lulls you into false security, yet a grave where hypothermia's ghost from the night lingers in your chilled core, a paradoxical dance that historians attribute to the warm current's rapid heat loss under starless skies. You tread onward, the rhythm a quiet affirmation of life, each cycle a defiance that echoes the resilience etched into survival's annals, evoking a somber empathy for those who face such trials without the hindsight of records, and a subtle reverence for the lessons that illuminate our present fragility. As the morning stretches into an interminable haze, the sun's cruel light exposes not just the physical scars, blistering shoulders, salt-rimed hair, but the inner landscapes of doubt, where hope frays like weathered rope. The group circle holds a floating sanctuary amid the void, yet cracks appear in the form of silent sighs, unspoken fears that the rescue, promised by protocol, might be as elusive as the horizon. In these moments, a melancholic introspection blooms, drawing parallels to contemporary comforts, where isolation is a choice, not a sentence, honoring the unadorned courage that history preserves in faded logs and survivor tales. The water's gentle undulations continue, a hypnotic cadence that soothes even as it threatens, weaving fear into a tapestry of quiet endurance, where every breath drawn defies the depth's silent invitation. The dread of the unknown below intensifies subtly, the water's opaque veil a canvas for imaginings that stir a quiet unease. Yet in the shared vigilance, a profound solidarity emerges, a testament to the human weave that binds against unraveling. You glance at Smitty, his youthful features hardened by the light, and sense the fatalistic thread that connects you all, a recognition that destiny, with its capricious hand, has cast you here to test the mettle of souls. Without verdict, only the inexorable flow toward whatever dawn's revelations await. The sun beats down, a forge tempering your resolve, and in that heat, A quiet gratitude stirs for the knowledge that revives these echoes, bridging eras with empathy and reminding that survival's essence lies not in conquest, but in the persistent pulse of being. Historians still debate the timing of those first shadows beneath the waves, whether the sharks, drawn by the symphony of explosions and the scent of blood from the wounded, arrived with the dawn or lingered from the night's chaos. But in your circle, the whisper of that fin plants a seed of inevitability, a quiet acknowledgement that the sea's inhabitants claim their due without haste or malice. The light, once a harbinger of hope, now amplifies the vulnerability, turning the water into a translucent stage where every movement below hints at an audience unseen. Yet you persist, treading with a rhythm that defies the fatigue settling in your muscles like leaden fog, each kick a small victory in the grand, unfeeling theatre. The thirst gnaws deeper, a constant companion that sharpens your senses to the irony of abundance, where water surrounds but sustains nothing, a cruel jest from the fates that underscores the fragility of existence. In the midst of this, the group's murmurs turn to strategies born of desperation, rationing strength, scanning for debris that might float higher. But underlying it all is a melancholic acceptance, a quiet empathy for the paths that led here, from the secrecy of your mission to the vast machinery of war that overlooks the individual spark. Compared to the illuminated maps and instant communications of future eras, this blindness feels like a relic, evoking a deep respect for the tenacity that history salutes in quiet corners, and fostering a gratitude that tempers modern burdens with perspective. The sun climbs, unrelenting, and in its glare, you find a strange solace in the shared silence, a bond forged in the crucible of waiting, where fear and fortitude entwine like currents in the deep. As the day fully claims the sky, the light's cruelty peaks, scorching not just flesh but spirit, yet in the circle's persistent hold, a subtle defiance endures, a recognition that survival is the ultimate act of quiet rebellion against the void. The whispered debate over the fin fades into watchful quiet, the water's surface a deceptive calm that hides the pulse below, stirring a profound sympathy for those who navigated such uncertainties without the lens of hindsight. The thirst builds, a symphony of need that drowns out lesser thoughts, and in that symphony, a wry reflection surfaces, how the sea offers endless refreshment, yet demands you pay with everything but a sip. You tread on, the rhythm a lifeline, honoring the unyielding spirit that echoes through time. The murmur spreads like a ripple across still water, faint at first, but gaining momentum as the sun's unyielding gaze bears down, turning the debate into a fragile lifeline amid the growing haze of uncertainty. One man insists he saw it, a sleek shadow gliding just beneath the surface, purposeful and unhurried, while others shake their heads, attributing it to the play of light on waves or the tricks exhaustion weaves in weary minds. The words hang in the air, neither dismissed nor embraced fully, each syllable a thread pulling tighter the web of unease that binds you all, as if the sea itself conspires to sow doubt in the soil of your fragile alliance. You listen in silence, your own gaze dipping to the opaque blue that cradles you, where every subtle shift in current feels like a whisper from depths that hold secrets far beyond the reach of human reckoning. As the discussion ebbs and flows, carried on voices hoarse from salt and strain, the physical toll asserts itself with quiet insistence, sunburn etching fiery maps across exposed skin, each blister a blooming testament to the sun's indifferent artistry. The heat presses like a forge's breath, drawing moisture from your body in invisible streams, while thirst claws deeper, a relentless echo that drowns out lesser complaints. You suppress thoughts of hunger, pushing them down like unwelcome intruders, focusing instead on the mechanical cadence of treading, each kick a deliberate act of preservation amid the vast emptiness that erodes hope like waves sculpting stone. The horizon remains a mocking line, unbroken and eternal, a canvas where rescue should paint its promise, but offers only blank expanse, stirring a melancholic reflection on how fate, with its capricious hand, scatters lives like debris from a storm long past. To distract from the gnawing void, stories unfurl tentatively, shared in fragments that bridge the gaps between swells, tales of shore leaves in distant ports, of letters from sweethearts that now seem like relics from another epoch, their ink faded by the sea's relentless claim. Harlan recounts a poker game gone awry in Guam, his gravelly laugh a fleeting spark against the oppressive light, while Reyes spins yarns of family recipes, the phantom sense of spices a cruel mirage on the salt-laden air. You contribute sparingly, your voice a low rumble that blends with the water's murmur, perhaps recalling a drill back on base that promised preparedness for anything but this endless drift, where the Navy's ironclad assurances now float as hollow as the debris around you. These exchanges, laced with a quiet irony born of the moment's absurdity, foster a bond that transcends the immediate peril, honoring the unadorned courage that history often glosses over in favor of grander narratives, evoking a subtle empathy for those who endured without the comfort of hindsight's clarity. Yet beneath these distractions, the emerging threat lingers, amplified by a distant splash that echoes like a punctuation mark in the sea's vast sentence, drawing eyes toward the horizon where the sound originated. Too far to confirm, close enough to unsettle. No one speaks of it directly at first, but the circle tightens imperceptibly, arms linking with renewed tension, as if the water's surface conceals a gallery of observers waiting for the opportune moment. The sunburn's sting intensifies, a constant reminder of vulnerability, while the emptiness gnaws at resolve, turning the once vibrant blue into a veil over an abyss that pulses with life unseen. In this deepening tension, a fatalistic calm settles, a recognition that destiny weaves its patterns without regard for individual pleas, drawing parallels to modern sanctuaries where perils are mitigated by technology's vigilant eye, fostering a profound gratitude for the knowledge that revives these shadowed chapters and tempers contemporary fragilities with perspective. The debate reignites softly, voices threading through the heat's haze, some clinging to rational explanations, debris from the wreck, a dolphin perhaps, while others allow the possibility to fester, their eyes scanning the depths with a vigilance that borders on obsession. You feel the shift in the group's rhythm, the treading now laced with hesitation, each pause a concession to the whispers below that evoke a quiet dread, as if the sea harbors ancient grudges against intruders like you. Historians still argue over the arrival of those oceanic whitetips, whether the initial blood trails from the wounded or the thunder of explosions summoned them like a siren's call. But in your suspended world, such dissections feel irrelevant, the threat manifesting not in facts, but in the subtle churn of water that hints at movement just out of sight. The vastness erodes hope further, the sun's light now a cruel illuminator that exposes every crack in composure. Yet in this erosion, a resilient spark endures, a quiet tribute to the human capacity to face the unknown without flinching. As the day presses on, the tensions rise in layers, like sediment settling in the deep, the distant splash replaying in minds as a harbinger that defies dismissal. Suppressing the gnawing hunger becomes a ritual. Thoughts diverted to war stories that paint pictures of camaraderie in foxholes or aboard the vanished ship. Each anecdote a bulwark against the despair that threatens to swell like the waves themselves. Smitty's youthful features, etched sharper by the light, reflect the shared strain, his occasional glance toward the depths a mirror of your own unspoken apprehensions. In these moments, a wry undercurrent surfaces amid the reflections, the sea's endless buffet of undrinkable delights, where the menu features oil-infused specialties that no one ordered, a fleeting absurdity that underscores the irony without alleviating the ache. The group clings to these narratives, weaving them into a shield against the erosion of spirit, honoring the timeless valor that history embeds in survivor accounts, stirring empathy for the unyielding paths of yesteryear, and a subtle reverence for the lessons that anchor today's fleeting securities. The whispers of the deep intensify subtly, the water's surface a deceptive calm that belies the pulse below, each unexplained ripple a note in an unfolding symphony of unease. You tread with deliberate focus, the rhythm a counterpoint to the growing dread, while the sunburn's fire spreads like a slow-burning fuse, reminding you of vulnerability's relentless advance. The emptiness weighs heavier, hope fraying at the edges like sails in a gale. Yet in the shared vigilance, a profound solidarity blooms, a fatalistic bond that defies judgment, embracing the inexorable flow of circumstance. Compared to the networked vigilance of later eras, where isolation yields to instant connection, this trial evokes a deep respect for the raw tenacity that once bridged such voids, fostering gratitude for the historical threads that illuminate present paths. In the midst of this rising tension, the group's stories take on a meditative quality, each tale a quiet defiance against the sea's indifferent vastness, drawing you deeper into the collective resolve that fate demands. The debated shadow lingers in peripheral thoughts, transforming the blue expanse into a canvas of potential omens, where every glint could herald the unseen. Yet you persist, treading a silent vow, honoring the unyielding spirit that echoes through time's corridors, evoking a somber empathy for those who navigated without maps of memory, and reminding that survival's grace lies in the persistent whisper of endurance amid the deep's quiet call. The sun hangs higher, its light a forge of trials, and in that forge a quiet reflection stirs, how the sea plays host to uninvited guests, hoping they're picky eaters, laced with enough oil to taste like yesterday's regret, a fleeting irony that tempers the fear without extinguishing it. The whispers continue, the day deepening its hold, as destiny unfolds its inexorable script. The second day unfurls like a tattered banner caught in a relentless breeze, the sun a tyrannical sovereign reclaiming its throne with unsparing brilliance, casting the sea into a glaring expanse that blurs the line between reality and reverie. Thirst has evolved overnight into a voracious entity, no longer a mere discomfort, but a consuming fire that licks at your insides, turning every thought toward the phantom relief that dances just beyond reach. The water around you, once a mere medium of suspension, now mocks with its crystalline allure, each wave a seductive murmur promising solace it can never deliver, while the heat presses down like an invisible shroud, drawing sweat that evaporates too swiftly, leaving your skin taut and feverish, a canvas stretched over bones that ache with the weight of persistence. As the hours stretch, distorted by the sun's unblinking eye, the first cracks in perception appear, subtle at first, like hairline fractures in glass that promise shattering. A shimmer on the horizon coalesces into form, A lush island rising from the waves, its palms swaying in invitation, streams of clear water cascading over rocks that gleam like forgotten jewels. You blink, the vision flickering but insistent, pulling at your resolve with tendrils of longing that twist deeper than the currents below. The group notices your distant gaze, murmurs rippling through the circle like echoes in a cavern. Yet no one mocks. Instead, they share their own fleeting phantoms, voices laced with a quiet resignation that fate weaves such deceptions as part of its inexorable design. In this shared vulnerability, a bond deepens, a silent acknowledgement that the mind, pushed to its brink, crafts escapes where the body cannot, honoring the intricate fragility of the human spirit amid trials that strip away all but essence. You turn to Smitty, his face a mask of youthful strain etched sharper by the light's unforgiving chisel, and grasp his arm to anchor both of you, whispering reminders of home, a sister's laugh, the scent of rain on Midwestern soil, to pull him back from the edge where illusions beckon like siren songs. He nods, eyes glazed but grateful, yet the effort drains you further, the words scraping your parched throat like sandpaper, each syllable a defiance against the encroaching haze that clouds judgment. Paranoia stirs then, a subtle undercurrent that flows through the group like tainted water. Suspicions blooming in sidelong glances. Does that man eye your vest with too much intent? His grip tightening not in solidarity but covetousness? No accusations fly. Instead, they simmer unspoken, a fatalistic thread woven into the tapestry of endurance, where trust frays under the sun's relentless scrutiny, evoking a profound empathy for the delicate balance that once sustained crews through storms, now tested in this liquid forge. The visions intensify as the day wears on, the intact Indianapolis materializing on the waves like a ghost ship from a sailor's yarn, her decks alive with crewmates waving you aboard, their voices a distant chorus promising cool decks and fresh rations. You shake your head, the image dissolving into foam, yet the ache lingers, a melancholy echo of what was lost in the night's fury, stirring reflections on how destiny, with its capricious quill, script such torments without preamble or pity. Historians would later sift through survivor accounts, debating the role of dehydration in these spectral visitations, how the lack of water twisted neural pathways into labyrinths of delusion, leading some to self-inflicted ends as the body rebelled against the mind's false promises. But in the drift, such analyses fade into irrelevance. The hallucinations a personal crucible that test the mettle of will, drawing quiet parallels to modern sanctuaries where ailments are mapped and mitigated, fostering a subtle reverence for the raw tenacity that history embeds in tales of those who wandered such mental wildernesses. Efforts to ground yourselves become rituals, shared in hushed tones that blend with the water's eternal murmur, counting waves, reciting ranks, anything to tether the drifting psyche to the tangible sting of sunburn and the rhythmic burn in your legs. Smitty clings to your words, his responses fragmented but fervent, a lifeline thrown across the growing chasm where reality blurs into fantasy. And in that exchange, a quiet irony surfaces amid the desperation. How the mind, ever the inventive companion, conjures oases that demand no tip before vanishing, a fleeting absurdity that tempers the despair without dispelling it. The group contracts slightly, arms linking with renewed urgency as paranoia whispers of hidden motives, yet no fractures erupt. Instead, they simmer, a fatalistic undercurrent that underscores the human weave, resilient even as threads strain, evoking empathy for the unyielding paths navigated without the compass of hindsight as the sun dips toward its zenith. The hallucinations weave more intricate patterns, islands morphing into familiar harbors where loved ones wait with open arms. The visions so vivid they pull at your resolve like undertows, demanding you swim toward nothingness. You resist, anchoring to Smitty's presence, reminding him and yourself of the mundane anchors back home, the simple joys that now seem like artifacts from a distant civilization. The dehydration's grip tightens, a slow erosion that historians attribute to the sea's paradoxical cruelty. Warm waters accelerating fluid loss under the sun's gaze, turning bodies into desiccated vessels adrift in abundance. In this deepening haze, a melancholic introspection blooms, honoring the quiet heroism in mere persistence, where the mind's shadows test the soul's light, stirring gratitude for the illuminated understanding of later eras that maps such torments, bridging time with compassion. The paranoia ebbs and flows like the tides, suspicions cast in fleeting glances that dissolve into shared silence, a collective vigilance against both external whispers and internal phantoms. You tread onward, the rhythm a counterpoint to the mental drift, each movement a quiet affirmation amid the sun's oppressive rain, where hope frays but does not snap. In this trial, destiny reveals its hand without fanfare, a neutral scribe chronicling the interplay of will and circumstance, evoking a profound sympathy for those who face such veils without the clarity of records, and reminding that survival's grace often lies in navigating the shadows within. The day deepens, the light a forge of illusions, yet in the circle's tenuous hold, a spark of defiance endures, a testament to the enduring pulse that echoes through history's quiet corridors. The visions persist, fleeting but insistent, pulling at the edges of sanity like threads unraveling from a worn seam. Yet you cling to the tangible, the burn in your muscles, the salt sting, a ritual of grounding that honors the intricate dance between body and mind. Smitty's eyes mirror your struggle, his whispers a fragile echo of resolve, and in that mirror, a subtle reflection stirs, how the brain plays generous host to uninvited guests, offering mirages without the courtesy of permanence, an irony that flickers amid the haze without lightening the load. The group endures, the hallucinations a shared burden that binds rather than breaks, evoking empathy for the uncharted territories of the psyche that war exposes, and fostering reverence for the historical lens that illuminates such depths, tempering modern burdens with perspective's gentle light. The sun hangs heavy, the whispers of the deep now joined by those within, as fate continues its inexorable weave. The sun hangs suspended in its zenith like a judgmental eye, unblinking and impartial, as the second day's weight settles deeper into your bones, turning the drift into a slow unraveling where the boundaries of self begin to fray like weathered canvas under relentless strain. Thirst has become a constant companion, no longer a mere urge, but a hollowing force that carves canyons in your resolve. Each parched breath a reminder of the sea's cruel abundance surrounding you, yet offering nothing but mockery. The group circle, once a bastion of shared defiance, now contracts with subtle tremors, arms linking not just for buoyancy, but as lifelines against the internal tempests that brew fiercer than any wave, where the mind's fragile architecture buckles under the assault of deprivation. One man breaks first, his eyes glazing with a feverish gleam as he dips his head toward the water, lapping at the surface with desperate gulps, his voice rising in delirious praise. "Sweet as soda, boys, come taste it." A proclamation that slices through the haze like a discordant note in a somber melody. You lunge forward with the others, restraint born of instinct rather than strength, pinning his arms as he thrashes weakly, his raving a mirror to the chaos bubbling within you all, where reason teeters on the edge of abandonment. No one judges him. Instead, the act ripples outward, a fatalistic wave that erodes the fragile trust, stirring whispers of who might succumb next. Each glance a silent query laced with empathy for the unraveling soul, and a quiet dread that it could be your own reflection, staring back from the water's deceptive calm. In the struggle to hold him, bonds strain further, the physical exertion draining reserves already thinned by the sun's forge, where heat forges not steel but fragility, blistering skin into maps of suffering that historians would later trace in survivor logs as markers of endurance's cost. The Navy's oversight looms unspoken in these moments, the non-arrival at port not flagged promptly due to wartime protocols that prioritize secrecy over swift action, prolonging your limbo in a bureaucratic void that echoes the sea's own indifference. Yet such facts dissolve into the immediate, where the man's delirium subsides into exhausted sobs, his body slumping against the circle like a deflated sail. A poignant reminder that madness spreads not through contagion, but through the slow erosion of hope, evoking a profound sympathy for the intricate vulnerabilities that war exposes, and fostering a subtle gratitude for the illuminated safeguards of later times that map and mitigate such descents. As the afternoon drags, distorted by the heat's shimmering veil, another fracture appears. One comrade simply stops, his treading faltering not from attack, but from a quiet surrender, his eyes distant as he slips beneath the surface without a word, vanishing into the blue like a thought unfinished. The group watches in stunned silence, the absence of void that pulls at the edges of your formation, arms readjusting with mechanical reluctance, each member grappling with the echo of that choice, a fatalistic thread that weaves through your thoughts without accusation. Only the inexorable recognition that destiny offers no reprieve from the body's betrayal. In this loss, paranoia deepens subtly, suspicions flickering like shadows under the water. Does the next man cling too tightly, his grip a prelude to desperation? Yet the circle holds, a testament to the human weave that persists even as threads snap, honoring the quiet valor in facing such internal abysses without the anchors of hindsight. You turn to Smitty, his presence a fragile anchor amid the drift, your bond strengthening through these shared fractures, where whispers of home become talismans against the encroaching disarray. He fights his own visions, murmuring of an oasis that beckons with cool shade, only to dissolve like mist, and in his struggle, a wry undercurrent surfaces amid the haze, how the mind generously conjures escapes that demand no fare before fading, an irony that tempers the ache without easing it. The group's dynamics shift, conversations turning inward, each man a solitary island linked by tenuous bridges, where the dehydration's grip, historians noting how it warped neural paths into labyrinths of delusion, fuels a melancholy introspection on the fine line between resilience and release, stirring empathy for those who navigated such thresholds without the clarity of records, and evoking reverence for the historical insights that bridge eras with compassion. The madness spreads in layers, like sediment clouding the depths. One sailor raving of rescue planes that never materialize, his fervor a spark that ignites brief arguments before fizzling into exhausted quiet, the circle contracting further as if to contain the unraveling. You restrain another who eyes the water with longing, his claims of sweetness a siren call that tugs at your own fraying edges, the effort sapping strength but forging a deeper solidarity, a fatalistic pact that defies the sun's oppressive reign. In these fractures, reflections bloom unbidden, The irony of a mission shrouded in secrecy now dooming you to obscurity, where the atomic cargo's shadow lingers as a cosmic jest, prolonging suffering through overlooked signals that later inquiries would dissect, without resolving the human cost. Yet no bitterness colours the moment. Instead, it flows with the currents, a quiet tribute to the endurance that history embeds in faded testimonies, fostering gratitude for the networked vigilance of future days that tempers isolation's bite. As the day wanes toward its merciless peak, the bonds fracture visibly, the group smaller now, arms linking with a weariness that speaks of inevitable loss, each departure a somber punctuation in the narrative of persistence. Smitty's hand in yours becomes a lifeline, his fight against the delusions a mirror to your internal battle, where the mind's shadows test the soul's tether without mercy or malice. In this deepening madness, a profound empathy emerges for the unyielding paths of those adrift in history's currents, evoking a subtle respect for the knowledge that revives their echoes, and reminding that survival often lies in embracing the fractures without shattering entirely. The sun beats on, a forge of trials, yet in the circle's tenuous grasp, a spark of defiance endures, a testament to the human pulse that defies the void's quiet invitation. The raving subsides into mutters, the group adjusting to the absences with mechanical resolve, where paranoia simmers but does not boil over, a fatalistic undercurrent that underscores the delicate balance of trust amid betrayal's whisper. You ponder the oversight that sealed this limbo, the non-arrival unnoticed amid wartime's chaos, a bureaucratic echo of the sea's indifference, drawing quiet parallels to modern safeguards where such oversights are anomalies, not norms, stirring reverence for the historical lens that illuminates these shadowed vigils. The madness spreads, yet the bonds, though fractured, hold with a resilience born of necessity, honouring the intricate dance of will against dissolution, and evoking gratitude for the perspective that tempers contemporary burdens with empathy's gentle light. The day deepens, the whispers within now as potent as those below, as destiny continues its inexorable script. The third day dawns not with renewal, but with a weary resignation, the sun rising like an ancient scribe resuming its chronicle of erosion, its light filtering through a haze that softens edges, yet sharpens the inner voids where endurance frays into whispers of release. The sea, ever the patient observer, mirrors this shift, its surface a placid veil over currents that pull with gentle insistence, as if inviting the weary to explore the silence below. Your skin, once merely taut under the relentless gaze, now cracks like parched earth in a forsaken field, fissures blooming across arms and shoulders where the salt has etched its intricate script, each line a testament to the body's slow capitulation to elements that forged not strength but surrender. One by one, the echoes multiply, subtle at first, a man at the circle's edge whose paddling slows to stillness, his eyes fixed on some distant point where the horizon dissolves into infinity, before he simply leans back, allowing the water to claim him without protest or plea. No dramatic flail, no final cry, just a quiet drifting away, his form receding into the blue like a leaf carried on an autumn stream, leaving a gap in the formation that the group closes with mechanical reluctance, arms readjusting as if mending a tear in fabric worn too thin. Another follows soon after, his mutterings of peace in the depths fading into bubbles that rise and pop like forgotten thoughts, the act of fatalistic choice that ripples through you all, stirring a melancholic understanding that destiny offers such exits without fanfare, a neutral pathway in the grand design where will bends under the weight of unrelenting trial. In these losses, the group's cohesion strains further, the remaining links forged not from optimism, but from a shared, unspoken pact to witness until the end, where paranoia peaks in vigilant glances toward vests and debris, each man guarding his flotation like a relic from a vanished era, fingers tightening instinctively against imagined thefts that never materialize. You feel it in your own grip, the vest a sodden talisman clutched closer, its straps a barrier against the void's pull, while the sun's heat amplifies the isolation, turning the drift into a solitary meditation on fragility amid the vast, unfeeling stage. Historical records would later tally the toll, over 300 claimed not by the initial fury, but by exposure's slow siege, the sun and sea conspiring in a dance of depletion that outpaced even the shadows below, a fact that underscores the inexorable arithmetic of survival without the mercy of intervention. Smitty, his features hollowed by the light's carving hand, draws you back with a childhood memory shared in halting breaths. A summer creek where he skipped stones as a boy, the ripples expanding endlessly like the waves around you now. A tale spun not for distraction, but for anchoring. His voice, a fragile bridge across the growing chasm where resolve wavers. You listen, the image flickering in your mind like sunlight on water, a fleeting respite that honors the simple threads of life that war severs without remorse, evoking a quiet empathy for the unyielding narratives that history preserves in quiet ledgers, and stirring gratitude for the connected tapestries of later days where memories sustain without the threat of dissolution. The surrenders continue, each one an echo that resonates deeper, a man slipping away mid-sentence, his body yielding to the embrace below as if answering a call too soft for others to hear, the absence pulling at the circle like gravity on a fraying orbit. No one speaks of it directly. Instead, the gaps close with silent adjustments, the group's rhythm adapting to the diminished chorus, a fatalistic harmony where loss becomes part of the drift's melody. Your own reflections turn inward, pondering the vestiges of strength that cling amid the cracks, where the skin's fissures mirror the soul's, each one a pathway for despair to seep through. Yet in that seepage, a subtle irony emerges, how the abyss offers fashion tips in debris form, accessorizing with floating caps that scream survival chic from yesterday's wreckage, a wry flicker that underscores the absurdity without halting the ache. As the day deepens its hold, the paranoia evolves into a quiet watchfulness, eyes darting to vests and hands that hover too near, the trust once implicit now laced with the subtle tension of guardianship, where each man becomes sentinel of his own fragile domain. Smitty's story lingers, a counterpoint to the losses, its ripples a reminder that memory serves as a buoy when all else sinks, fostering a bond that defies the erosion, a testament to the human capacity to weave light from fading threads. Historical insights reveal the scale, exposure claiming lives in numbers that dwarf the initial chaos, a slow attrition that fate inscribes without bias, drawing parallels to modern havens where such sieges are averted by foresight's hand, evoking respect for the fortitude that once bridged these gaps, and tempering present fragilities with perspective's gentle veil. The echoes multiply, another surrender unfolding in quiet grace, the man's form receding into the blue like a secret confided to the depths, the circle contracting once more with a weariness that speaks of inevitable thinning. You guard your vest tightly, the action a ritual of preservation amid the unraveling, while the sun's light casts long shadows across the water, turning the drift into a canvas of elongated forms that hint at elongation's end. In this deepening despair, a profound solidarity persists, a fatalistic weave that honors the quiet departures without condemnation, stirring empathy for the paths where will meets its limit, and fostering reverence for the historical echoes that illuminate such boundaries, reminding that survival's grace often resides in the acceptance of what cannot be held. The madness of surrender spreads in whispers, the group now a diminished constellation adrift, each loss a star winking out in the vast night of day. Yet in the remaining bonds, a spark of defiance endures, a quiet tribute to the resilience that defies dissolution. Smitty's memory becomes a shared anchor, its simplicity a counterweight to the complexity of fate's design, evoking gratitude for the knowledge that revives these tales, bridging eras with compassion's thread. The day presses on, the echoes fading into the water's murmur as destiny continues its inexorable inscription. The horizon quivers with a hesitant luminescence, as if the sky harbors reluctance to unveil the juncture where obscurity relents to illumination's impartial stride, draping the expanse in elongated silhouettes that extend like tendrils yearning for the vanishing gloom. You perceive the alteration in the atmosphere's texture, a fleeting alleviation from the oppressive radiance that has molded your essence into a conduit of persistence, now balanced on the threshold of revival's misleading vow. The ocean, perpetually the cryptic arena, commences its murmur in modified cadences, its facade undulating with purpose, where the abysses throb with an existence that scrutinizes devoid of urgency, advancing as the glow falters amid domains, a predestined overture that intertwines expectancy into the structure of your sentinel. Within this transitional shroud, the assembly's configuration maintains with a strain taut as violin strings, limbs entwined in a loop that oscillates with the surges, every participant a guardian harmonized to the evolving tempo beneath. A remote disturbance disrupts the hush, not the accustomed caress of crests, but a calculated turbulence, resounding like an invocation from concealed vaults, directing gazes toward the fringe, where the liquid dims into enigma. Nobody articulates the assurance yet. Rather, the quietness condenses, infused with the tacit awareness that the marine's dwellers, those streamlined contours refined by ages of chase, rouse with the transforming brilliance, their attendants a silhouette ballet on the tapestry of diminished visibility. Scholars would subsequently document how these pelagic white tips assembled most vehemently when brilliance was subdued, a configuration inscribed in eyewitness chronicles that highlights creation's unbiased chronology, absent animosity or compassion, merely the unyielding synchronization of hunter and situation. You discern it in the accelerated inhalations encircling you, how clasps constrict almost imperceptibly, as if the loop endeavors to compress against the intruding unfamiliar, a communal heartbeat that challenges the splintering suspended at the borders. A dorsal emerges momentarily, a somber arc incising the facade like an edge through velvet, evaporating before validation, but imprinting a residual vision that sears into your consciousness, arousing a muted apprehension that spirals inward, a predestined embrace that the marine's custodians near not with spectacle, but with the delicacy of dusk's progression. The liquid's warmth varies marginally, a chillier substratum ascending as if to proclaim the shift, grazing your calves like an experimental inquiry, each encounter a memento of susceptibility's profundity, eliciting a deep compassion for the fragile equilibrium that formerly protected navigators from such primal meetings, and nurturing a muted esteem for the documented sagacity that charts these configurations, moderating contemporary journeys with anticipation's steadfast grasp. As the brilliance fortifies in cautious increments, the dreads persist, embodied in the escalating regularity of disturbances that accentuate the serenity, each one a tone in an evolving prologue where the assembly transforms into both spectators and actors. A wail penetrates the remoteness, acute but subdued, dissolving into a bubble that resounds across the vastness like an admonition carved in effervescence, drawing the loop denser as shards of alarm menace to fragment the cohesion, limbs exerting against the impulse to disperse. You survey the visages lighted in the burgeoning dawn, carved with contours of muted determination that conceal the internal gales, a communal alertness that reveres the steadfast poise required by destiny's blueprint, absent censure for those who oscillate, solely the unyielding progression toward whatsoever the nearing glow discloses. The dorsals proliferate discreetly, somber half-moons carving trajectories that orbit the boundary, their motions a ballet of forbearance, enticed by the oscillations of your joint contention, a documented cadence that culminates when visibility merges into vagueness, heightening the perception of a gathering spectatorship for the principal performance. The liquid agitates closer, a contact against your shank dispatching an undulation of disquiet through your structure. Not frenzy, but a somber acknowledgement that the marine's denizens assert their realm, with the identical neutrality as the fluxes. A predestined waltz that arouses contemplations on how destiny orchestrates such unions devoid of prejudice, eliciting compassion for the unmapped hazards that examined antecedents absent the security lattices of period's advancement, and arousing thankfulness for the inscribed perceptions that brighten these obscured advances, linking duration with sympathy's muted filament. In the assembly's contracting clasp, connections assay their confines. The nearing dreads a spur that elevates consciousness of every alteration. Each disturbance a precursor that tugs at the fringes of equanimity, imperiling to disentangle the configuration into segregated contentions. You maintain steady, the cadence of your motions a counterbalance to the accumulating strain, while the glow's gradual progression casts the vista in a hazy sheen, converting the liquid into an arena where silhouettes frolic with escalating audacity. A sardonic notion glimmers amid the hush, how these subsurface visitors relish morning feasts in repose, with conveyance graciousness of the flow's margin, an irony that accentuates the instant's ludicrousness, absent dulling its sharpness. The dorsals near, their routes converging with deliberate elegance, a prologue that destiny engraves, devoid of rush, revering the complex equilibrium of quest and tenacity that characterizes such sentinels. The wails increase sporadically but nearer, each one a demarcation in the dawn's tale, drawing the loop into a denser tangle as the glow intensifies, brightening not merely the facade, but the internal terrains where determination encounters its ordeal. You perceive the splintering suspended, the assembly's cohesion a delicate construct against the intruding performance. Yet in this method, a deep unity continues, a predestined weave that challenges disintegration, arousing esteem for the documented resonances that resuscitate these strains, and recalling that perseverance's elegance frequently resides in confronting the silhouettes devoid of escape. The dread method, the liquid vibrant with discreet assurances, as destiny persists in its unyielding orchestration. The glow creeps onward, the dorsals a somber counterbalance to the lightening firmament, their motions a harmony of expectancy that constructs with the dawn's unyielding ascent, each orbit a tone in the nearing summit. You brace within the clasp, the assembly's inhalations synchronizing with the surges, a communal cadence that reveres the muted valor in anticipating the shroud's elevation. Absent reproof for the apprehension that spirals within, solely the persistent throb that resonates through duration's hushed passages. In this deepening method, compassion flowers for the steadfast thresholds traversed by those prior, eliciting a muted esteem for the archival glow that charts such preludes, moderating contemporary securities with the viewpoint's tender gleam. The dreads whisper nearer, the dawn's glow a herald of disclosure, as fate draws its inhalation for the unfolding performance. The sky bleeds into amber as the sun descends, a weary monarch relinquishing its throne to the encroaching shroud, where the boundary between day and night dissolves into a muted haze that cloaks the water in deceptive tranquility. You register the change in the fading warmth, a gradual dimming that eases the blaze on your weathered form, but awakens a different vigilance, as if the retreating light signals an invitation for the depths to reclaim their domain. The sea, a vast and enigmatic mirror, begins to stir with veiled intent, its surface catching the waning glow in fractured glimmers that hint at movements below, where forms glide with the grace of ancient phantoms, drawn by the subtle cadence of your presence amid the fading clarity. In this veiled transition, the assembly's hold quivers with unspoken anticipation, limbs entwined in a loop that sways to the rhythm of swells now laced with undertones of unrest, each participant attuned to the shifting symphony beneath. A nearby disturbance erupts, a sharp churn that scatters foam like scattered confessions, followed by a cry that slices the quiet, raw and fleeting, dissolving into the murk as the water claims its toll. Nobody needs to articulate the escalation. The silence thickens with the knowledge that these sleek wanderers, refined by timeless currents, converge most boldly when visibility wanes. Their circuits, a choreography of opportunity, a pattern inscribed in the annals of endurance that underscores nature's neutral orchestration, without fervor or favoritism, just the unyielding alignment of circumstance and instinct. You sense it in the accelerated pulses around you, the way clasps constrict with instinctive urgency, as if the loop strives to fortify against the intruding symphony, a communal throb that resists the dissolution poised at the margins. A silhouette breaches closer, a somber curve carving the facade with deliberate poise, vanishing swiftly but imprinting a lingering trace that ignites your awareness, evoking a muted apprehension that coils within, a predestined recognition that the ocean's sentinels advance not with clamor, but with the subtlety of evening's descent. The liquid's essence alters faintly, a cooler stratum ascending as if to announce the pivot, grazing your limbs like a tentative inquiry, each interaction a memento of exposure's extent, eliciting a deep compassion for the tenuous poise that once insulated explorers from such elemental dances, and nurturing a muted esteem for the chronicled acuity that delineates these rhythms, moderating contemporary passages with foresight's steadfast embrace. As the radiance wanes in measured steps, the horrors amplify, manifested in the mounting cadence of upheavals that punctuate the serenity, each one a measure in an evolving composition where the assembly morphs into both spectators and performers. A lament resonates nearer, piercing but restrained, fading into a ripple that reverberates across the breadth like a caution inscribed in transience, contracting the loop as fragments of turmoil threaten to shatter the harmony, limbs asserting against the urge to fragment. You examine the countenances illuminated in the dwindling twilight, sculpted with outlines of muted tenacity that veil the internal whirlwinds, a communal attentiveness that reveres the steadfast equilibrium required by destiny's outline. absent rebuke for those who falter. Solely the unrelenting advancement toward whatsoever the nearing obscurity unveils. The silhouettes burgeon discreetly, somber arcs inscribing paths that encircle the perimeter, their motions a ballet of restraint, enticed by the undulations of your united contention, a chronicled cadence that culminates when clarity merges into obscurity, intensifying the perception of a congregating spectatorship for the chief enactment. The liquid stirs adjacent, a contact against your frame dispatching a wave of disquiet through your being. Not hysteria, but a somber admission that the marine's inhabitants affirm their territory with the same impartiality as the oscillations. A predestined minuet that arouses musings on how destiny arranges such convergences devoid of partiality, eliciting compassion for the uncharted risks that assessed predecessors absent the protective meshes of epoch's evolution, and arousing appreciation for the engraved perceptions that brighten these veiled advances, connecting duration with sympathy's muted strand. In the assembly's contracting clasp, connections essay their limits, the nearing horrors a catalyst that elevates consciousness of every variation, each upheaval a harbinger that tugs at the fringes of composure, endangering to disentangle the configuration into isolated contentions. You sustain steady, the cadence of your actions a counterpoise to the accumulating pressure, while the glow's gradual recession casts the vista in a hazy luster, converting the liquid into an arena where silhouettes cavort with escalating daring. A sardonic notion glimmers amid the hush. Uninvited supper visitors wears the decorum in nibbling song presentations, an irony that accentuates the instant's ludicrousness, absent blunting its keenness. The arcs near, their roots converging with deliberate finesse, a prologue that destiny engraves, devoid of hurry, revering the complex equilibrium of quest and tenacity that defines such guardians. The laments increase sporadically but nearer, each one a demarcation in the twilight's tale, contracting the loop into a denser tangle as the glow diminishes, brightening not merely the facade, but the internal terrains where determination encounters its ordeal. You perceive the splintering suspended, the assembly's cohesion a delicate construct against the intruding performance. Yet in this method, a deep unity persists, a predestined weave that challenges disintegration, arousing esteem for the documented resonances that resuscitate these pressures, and recalling that perseverance's elegance frequently resides in confronting the silhouettes devoid of evasion. The horror's method, the liquid vibrant with discreet assurances, as destiny persists in its unrelenting orchestration. The glow creeps onward, the arcs a somber counterpoise to the dimming firmament, their motions a harmony of expectancy that constructs with the twilight's unyielding descent, each orbit a tone in the nearing summit. You brace within the clasp, the assembly's inhalations synchronizing with the surges, a communal cadence that reveres the muted valor in anticipating the shroud's descent, absent reproof for the apprehension that spirals within, solely the persistent throb that resonates through duration's hushed passages. In this deepening method, compassion flowers for the steadfast thresholds traversed by those prior, eliciting a muted esteem for the archival glow that charts such preludes, moderating contemporary securities with the viewpoint's tender gleam. The horrors whisper nearer, the twilight's glow a herald of disclosure, as fate draws its inhalation for the unfolding performance. You lose track of Smitty in the turmoil, his presence vanishing amid the chaos like a whisper swallowed by wind, leaving you alone in the water's grasp, instinct overtaking as you avoid gazing downward. The veil now a bloody curtain drawn across the stage. The attacks intensify, screams echoing as fins cut through the dimness, water turning to a stained shroud in the fading light, a fatalistic crescendo that defies resistance, stirring a profound empathy for the unyielding ordeals that tested souls without the solace of hindsight's clarity, and evoking gratitude for the chronicled wisdom that revives these veiled intensities, bridging eras with compassion's quiet thread. The dusk deepens, the terrors a symphony of loss, as destiny unfolds its inexorable act. The sun reigns at its midday peak, a relentless overseer perched in a cloudless vault, its radiance filtering through a gauzy haze that cloaks the sea in a deceptive stillness, as if the world has paused to catch its breath after the dawn's grim overture. You feel the shift in the absence of chaos, the frenzied ripples of earlier hours fading into a profound quiet, as if the ocean's deeper denizens have retreated to shadowed lairs, granting a fleeting reprieve under the highlight's unyielding watch. The water, a vast and tranquil mirror, reflects the sky's indifferent expanse in soft glimmers, its gentle swells rocking you with a rhythm that borders on solace, though the heat seeps into your weary frame like a slow poison, turning the drift into a liminal space where motion blurs into a dreamlike inertia. Among this stillness, silhouettes emerge in the distance, not as threats, but as silent companions. Motionless forms adrift on the waves, their outlines softened by the light's diffusion, floating like relics from a tale interrupted mid-sentence. You glide past them without intent, each encounter a brush against sodden cloth or lifeless limb that stirs no flinch, only a detached recognition, as if the boundary between existence and absence has dissolved into a translucent veil, allowing you to navigate their midst like a wanderer in a gallery of forgotten echoes. The air carries a faint tang of decay, a subtle undercurrent that mingles with the salt's bite, while the sun's embrace amplifies the languor, your body a vessel suspended among these quiet spectres, where the edges of self soften into the collective repose of those who have crossed into silence. Thirst persists as the day's silent sovereign, no longer a piercing cry, but a steady drone that hums through your core, pulling every sensation toward the singular ache for relief that the haze seems to withhold, the air thick with moisture yet barren of deliverance. Your lips, fissured into brittle ridges, part with each exhale, the breath a dry rasp that mirrors the sea's teasing abundance below, where droplets shimmer on the surface, but offer no sustenance, a paradox that lingers in your awareness without igniting panic. The light filters through half-closed eyes in golden waves, warming without mending, as tender welts swell into fragile orbs that pulse with the ocean's cadence, each one a blooming sigil of exposure's relentless craft, where the tropics' promise curdles into a penance under the unblinking canopy. In this suspended pause, thoughts drift unmoored, contemplating the sun's dual role as both nurturer and nemesis, its beams a forge that tempers flesh into resilience or ruin, a duality that later accounts would dissect, noting how midday's relentless exposure scorched tissues and hastened the body's decline, outpacing even the night's subtle theft of warmth. Yet such analyses feel remote, mere scribbles on a page you cannot reach, as you pass a vacant life vest, its straps trailing like abandoned promises, a hollow sentinel that prompts no sorrow, only a passing thought of utility amid the drift, free upgrade to deluxe flotation, since the previous tenant clearly found its surplus, a wry flicker that bubbles up like foam from the depths, underscoring the moment's detachment without piercing the stillness. The spectres multiply in quiet proliferation, their presence a tapestry of repose that the swells weave and unravel, Each form a note in a symphony of stillness that evokes a somber communion, where the line between companionship and solitude fades into irrelevance. You adjust your path minimally, the motion a languid deflection that honors the unspoken accord with these silent voyagers. Their forms a mirror to the potential within your own faltering frame, stirring a melancholic kinship that fate inscribes without emphasis, a neutral scribe chronicling the interplay of persistence and pause. The air shimmers with heat's distortion, turning the vista into a dreamlike tableau where distances deceive, fostering a profound respect for the uncharted endurance that once defined such intervals without the solace of recorded precedent, and evoking gratitude for the archival clarity that now bridges these muted pauses with understanding's gentle arc. As the lull extends, the detachment deepens into a cocoon of quietude, where sensations register as distant echoes, the sun's caress a remote warmth, the water's cradle a faint oscillation, allowing thoughts to wander through corridors of silent introspection, pondering how exposure crafts its own narrative of decline, searing not just flesh, but the spirit's veneer, a process that later examinations would attribute to the relentless ultraviolet assault, worsening the cascade of frailty in isolation's grip. Yet in the drift, these insights dissolve into the haze, replaced by the immediate tableau of apparitions that float in serene array, their stillness a fatalistic harmony that invites contemplation without alarm, drawing subtle parallels to contemporary refugees, where such exposures are anomalies, not inevitabilities, stirring empathy for the unyielding canvases of yesteryear and tempering present tranquillities with perspective's soft luminescence. The midday intermission lingers, the ghosts a constant yet unobtrusive chorus that the swells conduct with impartial grace, each form a note in a symphony of repose that underscores the fragility of continuance amid repose's allure. You navigate this gallery with minimal effort, the numbness a shield that buffers the ache, while the thirst hums as a background refrain, its insistence a quiet counterpoint to the scene's placidity, evoking a subtle respect for the historical tapestries that preserve these interludes, and fostering reverence for the knowledge that revives their nuances, reminding that survival's subtlety often resides in embracing the pauses without yielding entirely. The haze thickens slightly, the sun's dominion unchallenged yet softened, as fate continues its whispered composition. In the midst of this veiled respite, the detachment blooms into a profound quietude, where the apparitions serve as mirrors to the soul's own potential for stillness, their presence a fatalistic tapestry that weaves loss into the drift's melody without discord. You ponder the vestiges of vitality that cling amid this tableau, the sun's light now a diffused halo that illuminates without harshness, stirring reflections on how isolation forges its own echoes of surrender, a theme that archival voices would echo in tales of midday's deceptive calm, where the body's defenses waned under the cumulative assault. Yet the moment flows without analysis, the ghosts a serene accompaniment that honors the unyielding poise of those who lingered in such veils, evoking gratitude for the chronicled bridges that connect eras with empathy's thread, and tempering modern interludes with history's gentle wisdom. The lull persists, the waters embrace a hypnotic cadence. As destiny etches its subtle strokes, the midday haze lingers like a half-forgotten dream, the sun a distant overseer now softening its glare, casting the sea in a muted shimmer that blurs the edges of reality, as if the world has exhaled and left you suspended in its sigh. You drift alone, the circle's remnants scattered by the dawn's grim toll, each stroke of your arms a mechanical ritual that sustains without purpose. The waters embrace a cradle that rocks with indifferent patience, its surface a glassy veil over depths that hold no answers, only silence. The air carries a faint warmth, stripped of its earlier ferocity, yet it offers no comfort, merely a backdrop to the isolation that wraps you like a second skin, turning your existence into a solitary note in an endless refrain, where the rhythm of survival persists without fanfare or hope. Around you, the ocean stretches unbroken, a vast canvas where the ghosts of yesterday's chaos have settled into stillness, their forms now distant specks that blend with the horizon's deceptive curve, leaving you to navigate a solitude that feels both intimate and infinite. The vest, once a lifeline clung to with fierce resolve, now hangs heavy, its straps chafing against shoulders raw from exposure, a constant reminder of the fragility you guard with unthinking habit. Hunger gnaws faintly, overshadowed by the deeper ache of thirst, a silent sculptor carving hollows in your frame, each breath a dry scrape that echoes the sea's unyielding refusal to yield sustenance, a paradox that lingers in the quiet corners of your awareness without sparking resistance, only a muted acceptance that this is the shape of endurance now. In this solitary drift, thoughts wander unmoored, tracing the contours of a mission that seems both distant and omnipresent. The delivery of that atomic seed, a harbinger of cataclysm now resting in the abyss, its secrecy a chain that binds you to this isolation, where the Navy's oversight left your absence unnoticed, a bureaucratic echo of the sea's indifference. Historians would later dissect this lapse, pointing to the wartime machinery that prioritized stealth over vigilance, delaying the search that might have transformed days into hours. Yet such analyses dissolve in the immediate, where the water's gentle sway becomes a hypnotic pulse, lulling you into a state where action blurs into inertia, a numbed existence that honors the quiet fortitude of those who floated in such voids without the solace of recorded vindication, stirring a profound empathy for the uncharted trials of yesteryear and a subtle gratitude for the chronicled clarity that bridges eras with understanding's gentle thread. You adjust the vest mechanically, fingers tracing its frayed edges as if to confirm its reality, the act a ritual of persistence that requires no thought, only the ingrained reflex of survival, a silent defiance against the void's pull. A piece of debris floats nearby, a splintered plank, perhaps from the ship's shattered frame, and you secure it without emotion, its buoyancy a practical addition to your fragile arsenal, a wry flicker crossing your mind that the ocean's generosity comes with strings, offering driftwood as a consolation prize for those who missed the guest list for oblivion. The humor, born of desperation's quiet alchemy, underscores the absurdity without piercing the numbness, a fleeting reflection that aligns with the sea's impartial rhythm, evoking a respect for the resilience that history embeds in faded logs, and tempering modern comforts with perspective's soft resonance. The isolation deepens, a cocoon that muffles the world beyond your immediate sphere, where the horizon's curve seems to bend inward, enclosing you in a private theatre of endurance, the water's surface a stage where no actors remain, only the echo of their absence. The sun's light, now diffused through a gauzy veil, casts your shadow in elongated strokes, a solitary silhouette that dances with the swells, stirring a melancholic kinship with the unseen who drifted before, their stories preserved in the quiet annals of survival, fostering a reverence for the knowledge that revives these solitary vigils, and reminding that survival's grace often lies in navigating the silence without yielding entirely. The air shimmers faintly, a warm breath that carries no promise, only the weight of continuation, as if fate itself pauses to observe this solitary tableau. In this numbed existence, reflections turn inward, pondering the irony of a mission that carried the seeds of global upheaval, yet left you stranded in obscurity. A cosmic jest that weaves through the quiet without bitterness, only the fatalistic recognition that destiny crafts its narratives without regard for individual arcs. The exposure's toll, historically noted as a relentless assault that withered bodies beyond the initial chaos, manifests in the faint tremble of your limbs, the slow erosion of vitality under the sun's unceasing gaze. Yet the moment flows without analysis, the drift a meditative cadence that soothes even as it exhausts, evoking empathy for the unyielding paths of those who endured without the lens of hindsight, and stirring gratitude for the archival threads that connect eras with compassion's quiet weave. The ghosts remain distant now, their forms blending into the haze, a silent chorus that accompanies without intruding, each one a marker in the sea's vast ledger, where loss and persistence intertwine without judgment. You maneuver past another fragment, a torn cloth, perhaps a sailor's cap, securing it with the same mechanical detachment, its presence a subtle reminder of the collective that once held you, now reduced to solitary navigation, a fatalistic harmony that honors the quiet departures without condemnation. The numbness shields against the ache, a barrier that buffers the weight of isolation, while the thirst persists as a background hum, its insistence a counterpoint to the scene's placidity, drawing parallels to modern sanctuaries where such solitudes are anomalies, not inevitabilities, fostering respect for the historical tapestries that preserve these muted interludes and tempering present tranquillities with perspective's gentle light. As the lull extends, the isolation becomes a profound quietude, where the sea's embrace feels almost intimate. It swells a hypnotic rhythm that lulls without promising rest, each motion a testament to the persistence that defies dissolution. You ponder the vestiges of purpose that cling amid this solitude, the sun's light now a softened halo that illuminates without harshness, stirring reflections on how isolation forges its own narrative of endurance, a theme that survivor accounts would echo in tales of midday's deceptive calm, where the body's defenses waned under the cumulative siege. Yet the moment flows without scrutiny, the drift a serene accompaniment that honors the unyielding poise of those who lingered in such silences, evoking gratitude for the chronicled bridges that connect eras with empathy's thread, and reminding that survival's subtlety often resides in embracing the numbness without surrendering entirely. The sea persists, its cadence a whispered composition, as fate etches its delicate strokes in the quiet of your solitary drift. The sea exhales a languid breath, its surface shimmering under a sky that has shed its fiery veil, now draped in a softening azure where the sun lingers like a weary traveller pausing before departure. You drift in solitude, a speck adrift in the vast canvas of the Philippine Sea, your limbs moving with the rote precision of a metronome, each stroke a faint echo of will in a body hollowed by days of relentless trial. The water, once a merciless crucible, now cradles you with a deceptive gentleness. It swells a hypnotic pulse that blurs the boundary between surrender and persistence, as if the ocean itself hesitates to claim what remains, leaving you suspended in a twilight of existence where the horizon whispers of endings yet holds its secrets close. A sound intrudes, faint at first, a vibration that hums through the liquid's embrace, distinct from the sea's eternal murmur, or the distant cries that have long faded into memory. You pause, the rhythm of your treading faltering as the noise sharpens into a mechanical drone, a cadence alien to the organic symphony of waves and wind, stirring a flicker of awareness in your numbed mind. Lifting your gaze, eyes swollen and crusted with salt, you scan the vault above, half expecting another mirage, a cruel encore from a psyche that has conjured islands and ghost ships in its fevered wanderings. Yet there it is, a speck against the boundless blue, a dark mote that grows with deliberate intent, its wings glinting in the waning light like a herald from a world you'd nearly forgotten. A PV-1 Ventura slicing through the sky on August the 2nd, 1945, its presence a fragile thread piercing the fabric of your isolation. The drone swells, a lifeline cast across the void, yet doubt coils tightly, a reflex honed by days of betrayal where hope bloomed only to wither under the sun's unyielding scrutiny. You watch, breath held, as the plane dips lower, its silhouette sharpening against the heavens, a deliberate tilt of its wings signaling recognition, a gesture that ignites a cautious spark within your hollowed chest, as if fate, with its enigmatic quill, has paused to rewrite the script. The sea, indifferent to this intrusion, continues its gentle sway, but the air feels charged now, alive with the possibility that this is no illusion, no fleeting phantom born of delirium, but a tangible bridge to a shore you dared not imagine, evoking a quiet reverence for the uncharted miracles that history weaves into its tapestry of endurance, and stirring gratitude for the modern vigilance that renders such isolations relics of a bygone age. The plane circles, its engine a steady heartbeat that anchors you to the moment, and then, like a gift from the heavens, a shape detaches from its belly, tumbling downward to meet the waves with a muted splash. A raft, followed by canisters that bob in the swell, like offerings from a distant deity. You propel yourself forward, limbs protesting with a dull ache, each stroke fueled by a primal urgency that overrides the exhaustion etched into your frame. The raft eludes you at first, dancing on the waves like a taunting sprite, but you close the distance, fingers brushing its edge before grasping firm, pulling yourself toward the canisters with a desperation that feels both ancient and immediate, a ritual of survival that honors the unyielding spirit chronicled in survivor tales, fostering empathy for those who reached for salvation without assurance, and tempering present comforts with perspective's gentle arc. You pry open a canister, hands trembling with the weight of anticipation, revealing a treasure more precious than gold, a container of fresh water, its surface catching the light like a promise kept. The first sip is agony, a searing jolt that rakes your cracked lips and scorched throat. Yet it blooms into a sensation transcendent, a cascade of life that washes through you like rain on parched earth. Each drop a whispered absolution from the days of torment. You drink sparingly, rationing the miracle with a discipline born of necessity. A wry thought flickering through the haze. How the Navy's rescue arrives fashionably late, but at least it brought the premium vintage. No more ocean swill for the discerning castaway. An irony that underscores the moment's gravity without dimming its radiance, aligning with the sea's impartial rhythm and evoking respect for the historical threads that preserve such redemptions. The raft becomes your sanctuary, its buoyant embrace a stark contrast to the water's relentless pull, offering a fragile platform where you rest. Bodies splayed under the sky's softening gaze, the plane's drone now a fading echo as it banks toward the horizon, its mission fulfilled. Time stretches, elastic and dreamlike, until a new silhouette emerges, a ship, the USS Cecil J. Doyle, materializing like a spectre from the haze, its hull a solid promise against the liquid's treachery. Hands reach down, strong and unfamiliar, pulling you aboard with a gentleness that feels alien. The deck beneath your feet, a jarring solidity that defies the days of endless drift, stirring a melancholic recognition that salvation, though tangible, carries the weight of what was left behind, fostering gratitude for the chronicled clarity that revives these transitions, and reminding that survival's grace often lies in embracing the return without erasing the journey. Wrapped in a coarse blanket, the dry fibers a revelation against your weathered skin, you sip water in measured doses, each swallow a ritual of reclamation under the watchful eyes of rescuers whose faces blur into archetypes of compassion, their health a mirror to your own altered state, as if you've emerged from another realm where time carved deeper than years. The ship's hum vibrates beneath you, a mechanical heartbeat that contrasts the sea's organic pulse, yet the ocean's echoes linger. Spectral cries, the sun's searing kiss, the veiled depths that claim so many, a haunting chorus that embeds itself in your quiet, evoking empathy for the unyielding vigils of those who drifted without rescue, and stirring reverence for the historical lens that illuminates their legacies. Tempering modern sanctuaries with perspective's soft radiance, you learn the toll in fragments. 316 souls salvaged from nearly 900 cast into the sea after the Indianapolis's fall, a number etched in naval lore as the worst disaster of its kind, where exposure and unseen predators sculpted a narrative of loss that later inquiries would dissect, pointing to oversights that delayed the search, yet offering no solace to those who endured. The irony of your mission, delivering the atomic catalyst that would reshape history, now feels like a distant fable, its secrecy a chain that bound you to the abyss. Yet in this reflection, no bitterness surfaces, only a fatalistic acceptance that fate weaves its patterns without regard for individual threads, honoring the quiet heroism in persistence, and fostering gratitude for the archival bridges that connect eras with compassion's quiet weave. The deck beneath you steadies your frame, but a part of you remains adrift, tethered to the sea's vast silence, where the ghosts of comrades linger in the waves' gentle murmur, a melancholic kinship that fate inscribes without resolution. You close your eyes, the blanket's warmth a fragile cocoon, and sense the final whisper of salvation, not in the ship's solidity or the water's taste, but in the permission to rest, to release the vigil that held you through the abyss, evoking a profound respect for the unyielding spirit that history preserves in quiet annals, and reminding that survival's legacy endures in the quiet pulse of being, tempered by the sea's eternal refrain. The ship sails on, the horizon a promise of shores unseen, as destiny completes its whispered composition, leaving you safe at last, to dream without the need to drift. As the USS Indianapolis fades into the Pacific's quiet embrace, your journey through its shadowed trials, days of searing sun, veiled threats, and whispered salvation, settles into a gentle echo, a tale of resilience woven into history's vast tapestry. Let the sea's murmurs soften now, lulling your mind as you release the weight of the day, your body easing into the stillness of night. If wakefulness lingers, share your thoughts below. Where do these stories find you? Under what stars? Tomorrow's dusk promises another tale, a new whisper to guide you into dreams. For now, let the horizon fade, the waves recede, and your breath align with the calm. Close your eyes, safe in this moment, and drift towards sleep, carried by the courage of those who endured. Rest well until the next story calls.